I got a call from Rhino and they wanted to change the direction of the Mystery Science menus. They wanted to maybe interject a little bit more humor into it. So I thought it might be nice to take the bots, cut them out of the scenes and make them do funny things. Anything that had something to do with the movies. So not necessarily anything that was in the Satellite of Love, but we would take the bots and put them into the storylines from the movie. When the project moved to Shout, I was already doing a fair amount of work for Shout, so we talked about doing some different menus, and I pitched the concept of 3D to them, which they were very enthusiastic about. At the time, I only had modeled Tom Servo, so if you look at the early 3D menus we did, the CGI menus, all you see is Tom Servo in the menu. After the few menus with just Tom, I thought maybe it's silly. We have to introduce another bot. So I didn't have time to model another robot. So I called my buddy Dave and he modeled Crow for me.
I was working a lot with Rhino Home Video, doing lots of cartoony DVDs, G.I. Joe and Transformers and that kind of stuff. And I knew that they were putting out Mystery Science Theater in those days. And I was always jealous of my friend Rob at Design Path who was doing those projects. And I never told Sophia, my client over there, but I was always chomping at the bit to work on those.
And I got to animate then Tom and Crow into the menus, and they got a little bit more lively. I also decided to, instead of them having just do this back and forth, to create storylines for them now. So we would pull storylines from the movies, have them interact with each other, have them interact with the storylines, maybe add some sound effects or pull some music from the movie, and really brought the menus to a new level. As the menus became more complex, I called Dave again and he took them to an entire new level. He incorporated dialogue, music, sound effects, basically wrote a storyline and turned a 40-second menu into a little movie.
And I was ecstatic to do that. I started very simply with simple kind of static kind of animations and context and hopefully funny little gags, but they weren't that complex. And over time they got to be a lot more complex. I would build a character from the particular movie or some kind of set from the movie or something, some piece of the movie, and kind of try to bring it into the menus, sort of like they would do in their sketches. I was trying to make kind of one more sketch, kind of like a bonus sketch is how I kind of looked at it. My process is kind of layered. I start by just sitting down and watching through the whole movie, then start cutting those lines out of the audio from the movie and cleaning them up whenever necessary, and sort of making a word jumble with those little lines and try to see how they feel together and flow together, and how I can use character business to drive these little mini stories that I'm putting together. It sounds making it sound like it's so grandiose, but it's just goofy, and I guess if I have a bias about my approach, it's a funny bias. If something's funny, it tends to just go in there. It makes me laugh, and I know I'm on the right track if 3 days of staring at the same thing and hearing the same lines 1,000 times, I'm still laughing. I'm still chuckling at them. I'm amazed that they still, these guys are so funny. That's all leads up to writing a script, and I write a little short half-page script, and that goes out for approval to the guys at Shout, and it comes back, and usually they're so great at Shout. They usually just say, go, do. I think they understand that I love this material so much, and it comes through. So they sort of just, I have a very long leash, which is very, very satisfying. At this point, I have a green light and I'm good to go. And day one is usually I'm building props, characters, setting up, rigging, getting things kind of laid out the way I want. There's a few different sets that I've built over the 30 menus I've done so far, and so I usually try to keep the set. If I'm going to use the Satellite of Love set, I usually try to keep the set that is specific to the movie that I'm watching. Day two is when I start. The fun part probably for me is animating, And I go all the way through start to finish, and I do mouths for both Crow and Servo. Maybe if there's another character who does any talking, which is fairly rare. I find that having the mouth performance first drives a lot of what happens later in terms of how they move and react and where they're, how to block them. Day 3 is what I call kind of polish and compositing and cleaning up things and fixing problems and re-rendering stuff that didn't come out right. And at this stage, occasionally there'll be a joke will occur to me, but luckily, since I'm sort of all self-contained, I have the luxury of maybe I've gone back a few times and said that joke is good enough to go in, So I'll revise even all the way up to the last minute. Even a sound effect sometimes it just kind of adds a whole layer that I didn't really think of. Sometimes I'll throw in a sound effect and realize, oh, there's a bit of business that would be funny there, so I try to go back and squeeze it in. I'm a fan of the show, so there's so much that's precious about it to me, and I know that that's the case for a lot of fans, so it's something I'm always thinking about. I gravitated right towards MST3K when it was when it was on the air, when it was broadcast nationally, and in college we watched it all the time. It seemed like we were all sort of speaking the same language, the same pop culture references and that kind of wheelhouse of humor. So getting the job was amazing to be able to work with these characters that I loved, and to be able to puppet them as in a different kind of way of puppeting them, but it's still kind of an animation of them. That's really satisfying and fun.